So in last week's Neville Goddard conversation, we discussed some aspects from his book, The Power of Awareness, and also his lecture, The Changing of the Feeling of I. So today I'd like to go deeper into the feeling aspect. He says, when I speak of feeling, I do not mean emotion, but acceptance of the fact that the desire is fulfilled. So this is an important nuance point that makes the world of difference. You are formless. The self is formless. And reality is experienced by the state of consciousness that you feel as real. And by that, it's meant to inwardly know that what you imagine is the way that it is. And thus the outer world could never convince you otherwise, because it is the way you say it is inside. No denial or pretending, feeling it as real. So we want to not allow ourselves to be polarized to the world of Caesar-based information that seems to deny our vision, surrendering free will to what appears outside, when upon deeper introspection, it's to past beliefs not in harmony with how one truly desires to be. As he says here, the outer, physical events of life are the fruit of forgotten blossom times, results of previous and usually forgotten states of consciousness. They are the ends running true to oft-times forgotten imaginative origins. And thus, the world of Caesar inharmonious information may only seem to cause division. Remember, it's just the programming that one chooses to identify with inside that causes them to experience reality to the tune of that programming. Unnecessary resistance, thus, or overthinking, could be caused by not accepting the end as already done and identifying with certain past inharmonious beliefs in relation to the information, which is not true to how one truly desires to be. So you accept it as done for you, and you go on with your life. And from that state of consciousness, the loving thoughts flow. They're received within, which we'll talk about later, while in a loving state of consciousness, and those ideas can be expressed in creative acts or gestures of love. And so if ever in doubt in relation to what you desire, always imagine lovingly, as he says here. Whatever you do, do lovingly. I don't care what it is. And if you're ever in doubt, do the loving thing, which is called by simple term, the golden rule. And so remember, Neville is teaching metaphysics here. So the doing in this context is the imaginal act. For example, to imagine lovingly about yourself, or imagine lovingly about yourself in relation to others, or others in relation to you, which could be general, like perhaps everyone understands and appreciates me wherever I am. Now this formless I, which is love at its essence, speaks to you in the language of desire. This is your spiritual self, as he says here. The spiritual self speaks to the natural self through the language of desire. The key to progress in life and to the fulfillment of dreams lies in ready obedience to its voice. Unhesitating obedience to its voice is an immediate assumption of the wish fulfilled. To desire a state is to have it. And so the desires of the heart can be summed up actually even further as just allow yourself to be, which is allow yourself to be how you truly desire to be, which again is to live ideally, where you accept everything you desire as already done for you. So we always go to the end. You already are the ideal you desire to be in all areas of your life, and so you be that, as he says here. But I'll tell you one thing. Do not concern yourself with the means. Always go to the end. Dwell in the end, and you will hurt no one. And so why would anyone be afraid of hurting someone by accepting what the spiritual self desires? Well, perhaps they were looking around and determining based on how they interpret what others are saying or doing to determine what they should desire and imagine, which they think they should desire and imagine, which is not what they truly desire. When if they go within, they will know what they desire, and they will know that they already have it. As he says here, the spiritual self speaks to the natural self through the language of desire. To desire a state is to have it. So we have a choice here. We have a conscious aspect of mind to consciously choose between what we truly desire, simply put, listening to ourselves and trusting ourselves, or allowing the world to determine what we should desire, which could just be past programming playing out from previous states of consciousness. As he said here, the outer physical events of life are the fruit of forgotten blossom times, results of previous and usually forgotten states of consciousness. They are the ends running true to oft-times forgotten imaginative origins. So I listen to my heart and intuition exclusively, and I may or may not entertain appearances in this world, but I will go in the direction of what my heart desires. As Neville Goddard once said, God and only God gives me the different hungers. And so we know they're already fulfilled, for to desire a state is to have it. No unnecessary suffering, accepting I'm already the ideal I desire to be, done for you by grace. For me, it feels like, and remember how we defined feeling earlier? Feeling of being, we could say, satisfied, the hunger satisfied. It feels like a long flow of stimulating and inspiring desire. They merge together as an ecstatic feeling, as related to a question that he was asked. The question was asked, is it possible to imagine several things at the same time, or should I confine my imagining to one desire? In which he responded, personally, I like to confine my imaginal act to a single thought, but that doesn't mean that I will stop there. During the day, I may imagine many things, but instead of imagining a lot of small things, I would suggest that you imagine something so big that it includes all the little things. Imagine being ecstatic. You could not be ecstatic and be in pain. You could not be ecstatic and be threatened with the disposition notice. You could not be ecstatic if you were not enjoying a full measure of friendship and love. What would the feeling be like were you ecstatic without knowing what happened to produce your ecstasy? Reduce the idea of ecstasy to the single sensation. Isn't it wonderful? Do not allow the conscious reasoning mind to ask why, because if it does, it will look for visible causes, and then the sensation will be lost. Rather repeat over and over again, isn't it wonderful? Suspend judgment as to what is wonderful. Catch the one sensation of the wonder of it all, and things will happen to bear witness to the truth of this sensation. And I promise you, it will include all the little things. So you desire a state, and you have it. I get asked the question, how do I stay committed? And my answer is, what else should I commit to? You could easily commit yourself to what you love. If you don't love something, you may have to force yourself to commit. It happens automatically to what you love. The spiritual self speaks to the natural self through the language of desire. And you already know what you desire. The question really is, are you allowing yourself to have it? You know, whatever you pray for inside happens, and prayer is acceptance of the end, as stated in Matthew 6:6. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. It doesn't say, consult with this world when it comes to matters of your heart. It says, go within, close the door, which means disentangle your mind from the evidence of the senses. Accept that what you desire is done for you by grace, and it happens. It's done for you. So you have a choice to pray for what you don't want inside through the interpretations of appearances of the world or past programming. And I'm not interested in how convincing it may sound. The past is the past, and if I don't desire it, it's a former conversation. And we're taught to put off the former conversation and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, which means the spirit dwells in your mind. And the spirit animates this world. It takes what you pray or accept as done in your mind inside, and it plays all roles to externalize for you. It's the unseen. It's not the physical self that does it, although it may appear that way. It's the unseen. If body is involved, it moves automatically by law to play any role, if applicable, to bring forth the vision. And so never confuse the spiritual self talking versus the past programming. The spiritual self speaks of invention, innovation, and if people in history would never listen to their spiritual self, they would keep going around in circles repeating what they were seemingly told to think. Forget it. Put off that former conversation. Think for yourself. Listen to yourself and trust yourself. Everything else is secondary, as Steve Jobs said in his commencement speech. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. This to me means anything that seems to deny what I desire is secondary to what I desire, and I will not listen to the past programming in my mind, or if it plays out in the outer world in some shape or form. It is secondary, as also stated in Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we put it to the test. Fulfill it inside. It's done for you. Or lift a finger. The how will show up, and if the finger lifted, if applicable, spirit animates the world. And thus remain on the path and listen exclusively to the spiritual self. And if you do, everything will feel automatic. That's what happened to me. And that's why Neville's information is very deep and powerful. It's like an echo of something so deep from the ideal he put together, dwelling in and writing from that end. And so what do? You imagine a scene that implies you are already the ideal you desire to be. Imagine it once or loop it if you'd like. Same with autosuggestion, which is the same, only speech and imagination. And fall asleep in that feeling that it is already done for you, knowing that it's already done. Neville's not referring to pretending or faking here. That could create unnecessary suffering experienced as emotional resistance. You just suggest to yourself, that's the way it is, and you accept that suggestion, feeling satisfied that the prayer was heard. Feeling is the secret. It transcends the emotion as we go back to the beginning, as he said. When I speak of feeling, I do not mean emotion, but acceptance of the fact that the desire is fulfilled. Nuanced point. It's a spiritual sensation, knowing. Remember, Neville was a student of Kabbalah, which means to receive or receptivity, which includes Christian Kabbalah, starting with C, and he even has a lecture called the Kabbalah. Christian Kabbalah is intuitively receiving interpretations of the Bible, which is why we look at this as a personal inner relationship with God. Kabbalah with a K is intuitive interpretation of the Torah. So there's deep nuance in his words. Always remember, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. So from the state of the wish fulfilled, you continue to think, emotionally relate, and behave naturally without trying to suppress or forcefully trying to ignore or deny anything, because you know it's already done for you. Unnecessary resistance is caused by not accepting that it has already been done for you, as worrying how it's going to be done or some identification to a past belief that has nothing to do with how you are ideally, which seems to contradict that your desire is already done for you, which it clearly states it is done for you. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an autosuggestion to further encourage. You could say, I realize that all I desire is done for me as I remain in my ideal state of flow wherever I go, capturing the wonder of it all as I remain in the state of all wishes fulfilled, which is my ideal way of being, listening to myself and trusting myself, speaking inside of having what I desire as already done for me, which reflects as ideal experiences each day in the different areas of my life, all done for me by the unseen power within me. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.